Okay, and we're live. All right, I am so excited and honored to have Ash here on the Move Happy podcast. Thank you so much for being a part of the show today.
It's absolutely my pleasure. I appreciate you taking the time out of your precious day to do this with me.
Absolutely, I wouldn't miss it for the world. For those that don't know your background, why don't you share your origin story and where you are, what you're doing today?
So I grew up in the tech world. I basically, as an immigrant, I struggled financially tremendously. And at some point, I got into a little bit of arguing with my dad. I was like, "Hey, you have a PhD from USC in economics. How come we can't figure out the economy of our family?" And I was just naive. I was a 16-year-old boy who thought, "Oh my God, everybody and their grandmother is becoming a millionaire through tech. I can too." So he challenged me at that point, and he's like, "Look. I mean, if you can make at least $1 million, I would be happy with that, right? But it has to be done in a 12-month span. So, but if you can't, then you're just not half the man you claim you are. So why don't you just basically stay quiet, let me do what I do, and you keep attending school." And I just got so mad at him, so mad at him. So Erin, like literally, I developed OCD. Like I became like focused on, okay, I started literally with Googling, how does capitalism work? How do I become a millionaire? How do you invest money? How do you make money? And knock on wood, I made my first $1 million in a 12-month span by the age of 26, just kind of providing services for businesses as far as marketing and everything else goes. And it basically took off from there. However, as I was on my track to hopefully be one of the youngest people to ever take my company public, they found 3 tumors, or what they thought there were tumors on my brain. And then the diagnosis changed after a couple of months. They said, "Sorry, whoa, sorry about that. They're not tumors. It's more like multiple sclerosis, because tumors have to be around. Multiple sclerosis is kind of like a U shape, right?" I won't bore you with the details of the story, but obviously, as you can imagine, it was scary. I went through almost an entire year of being stuck between Cedars-Sinai and UCLA. And at the end of the day, they said, "It's such a rare form. We have never seen anything like it, and we don't know how to help you." So I just kind of started realizing frankly, I was reading an article that was called How People Used to Die. And it was talking about how we used to all be at home. We used to always be with our families and loved ones. And I just didn't want to die on a hospital bed listening to beep, beep. And, so I kind of changed my life. I donated as much money as I possibly could. And I started kind of doing as many free things for people as I possibly could, just because I started looking at nature. The trees outside make oxygen for you and I 24/7, and our lives literally depend on it. They don't do it to get kudos or to get paid, and I love that. The sun burns herself every day. If you think about it, the winds don't blow for themselves, they blow for you and I. The rivers don't flow for themselves, they flow for you and I, or basically the plants to kind of create agriculture and so on and so forth. So at some point I realized if I want to be happy in however many days I have left, I need to be more natural and live in the natural world. Instead of benefiting me, if I can continue to benefit other people, it will probably help me be happier. And I can't honestly tell you how beneficial it's also been monetarily as well, just because as you do more for other people, they want to reward you too. So I've got the best of both worlds, I feel like. Still don't know which one of these days is my last, but I continue doing the same thing.
I love that. I love that. And none of us know our last day, but it sounds like you really are taking charge of your life and really living every moment to the fullest. Awesome. Thank
Absolutely, 100%.
That. For those that maybe struggle with keeping a positive mindset, maybe they're in marketing like yourself, what are some tips and strategies you could share with keeping a positive mindset?
Couple of things. Number one, your circle matters the most, right? So for example, if I learned this from a very, very wise gentleman, if a flower doesn't grow the right way, it's typically not the flower, it's the environment around the flower, right? I don't care what kind of flower you are. If I put you in the Mojave deserts, you're probably not going to grow, right? Or if I put you in Siberia, it's going to be a lot more difficult for you. So number one is definitely your surrounding. Number two is just gratitude. Based on my research, and don't quote me on the last numbers, a couple of years ago when I was doing this research, about 50 million people a year go to bed at nights, but they don't get to wake up the next day. So all I want you to do is just when you wake up tomorrow, if you get a chance to actually wake up, realize that, oh crap, this is a gift. This is not a guarantee. What am I going to do today, right? The other thing is that play. Never, ever, ever work. Everything should be play. This is your playground. You have the entire world. You have to choose what kind of toys you want to play with today. So those are my top 3 strategies to keep happy.
Love it. Thank you for those. Those are excellent tips. So second pillar of Move Happy is about building strong communities. And, I'm sure in the business world, it can be challenging at times to kind of be connected with those, like yourself or outside in your personal life. What are some tips you've learned along the way to building strong communities?
I'll give you the secret of how to control other people. Every human being has 2 levers in their brain. It's either dopamine or serotonin, right, which is responsible for your happiness, or it's anxiety. Majority of times that you and I as human beings, we're very unintentional about what we do. Think about it. The words I'm using, all I'm doing is pushing air through my vocal cords, right? And I can either produce serotonin in your brain or anxiety, right? It costs me nothing to say, Erin, you look beautiful today, right? And if I continue doing that, I encourage you to be happier, right? So here's what I figured out. Everybody wants to be happy, right? And as long as we can give them exactly what they're looking for, networking or growing your community is very easy. Tell you what, think of it like this. You're the new kid in the village. If you want to be popular in the village, what would you have to do? You probably want to mow the lawn of your neighbor for free. You might want to see, like, their trash is sitting outside. Maybe you can do something about it. You want to go to church. You want to be nice. You want to start doing favors for other people. And the more humble you are, the more you keep yourself sincere, the more people start rewarding you. So building a community, in my opinion, is not very difficult. And I'll tell you, the biggest help that I've ever gotten in that aspect is the very famous book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. It talks exactly just about that.
Excellent tips. Thank you for that. Yeah, I love that book as well. Awesome. Third pillar of Move Happy has to do with movement. It started with a program I created for my patients in a psychiatric hospital, very, very low budget. So what are some of your favorite sports or physical activities or dance moves that don't cost a lot?
So I am in Reno, Nevada right now, right next to Lake Tahoe, right? And the biggest thing for me is just water. Somehow you and I know that 2/3 of our bodies is made out of water. Majority of our brain actually floats in water, and it's made out of water, right? The universe, the earth right now is actually made a lot from water, right? So if you think about it, something about that natural scene probably resonates with us. So my biggest favorite thing to do is just go by the ocean or go by the lake or get in the river, just because for me, body of water always calms you down, especially if it's got some sort of sound, whether it's wave sound, whether it's dripping sound, and so on and so forth. So the biggest physical activity I do now is just always be in the water as much as I possibly can.
Love it. Excellent.
It's always free too.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Do you prefer lakes or oceans, or does it matter?
To be totally honest with you, I do think I prefer lakes a little bit better because I'm not running a risk of running to a great white shark or something of that nature. I'm actually a pretty decent swimmer, but something about the ocean and the vastness of it and the greatness of it definitely keeps me humble. And for some reason, I think it just puts a little bit of almost fear in me, knowing that, oh my God, like this is so big. And I constantly go back to our galaxy, our universe, from one side of our galaxy to the other side of our galaxy. I don't know if you know, Erin, but it's 100,000 light years apart. And here's the craziest thing that I've discovered through science. We're not the only galaxy in the observable universe. Do you know how many other galaxies are out there?
No.
2 trillion that we have discovered so far, right? And imagine how big this world is. So as much as possible, I want to be part of it. I want to be part of the whole thing, right? Although just being in this scary, scary, scary world and just being so tiny just kind of it gives me a little bit of fear and kind of keeps me grounded and humble.
Yeah, that's understandable. Wow. Yeah. Yeah, totally. That's awesome. So what's something that you're focused on right now, you're working on, that we can support you? I'm happy with.
Frankly, right now, the biggest thing is that I'm focused on a lot of single moms. I'm focused on a lot of single dads, a lot of veterans, a lot of young entrepreneurs who are trying to figure out how to have some sort of solution for affordable housing. You and I both know that no matter where you are, it's just incredibly expensive for anybody to get into a house, right? We've forgotten about the American dream, and a lot of us millennials are trying to figure out, how do I live in a tiny house? Or does this even work for me, and so on and so forth. So my biggest passion is to hopefully create other environments that help people feel more secure. And you and I both know that security is one of the most fundamental needs that we have as human beings. So that affordable housing right this second happens to be one of my biggest, I guess, focuses. Next to that is probably our homelessness, just because there are a lot of amazing people. There are people that literally I owe my freedom to them because they have served our country. And it just bothers me to my core that sometimes they're on the streets and there's nothing that, people are doing about it, or as long as I'm alive, I would like to be that person that I can do something about it. And the last thing is that growing up, I always looked for that model, that role model that I can look up to, that role model that was truly, honestly, genuinely good. If they wanted to help me, it wasn't some sort of back-end deal that they were trying to sell me a course or they were trying to do something else and so on and so forth. So, or it wasn't like a multi-level marketing or something of that nature. So the biggest thing for me is how to figure out to give without necessarily receiving anything else in exchange. If you do, fantastic. But how do we continue having this natural ecosystem, just like we've had for the past millions of years? How do I become the strong, let's say, hunter that can hunt for my food, my family's food, but if I have extra, I know that I won't never need it. How do I continue spreading that around? So that's been my focus.
Excellent, excellent. And if there's people that are connected with what you just shared, what's the best way for them to connect with you and support you?
If you want to kind of hopefully join my movement to support other people, the best way to do it is probably Instagram. So Ash Sobhe, ASHSOBHE is how you can find me.
Perfect. Excellent. Everybody needs to follow you. You've got great content on there. Awesome.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely. And the last question, I always like to do a silly question to kind of help the audience get to know you a little bit more. And it's totally impromptu on the spot. So I did not plan this in advance or anything, right? I didn't ask you beforehand or anything like that. So you seem like a pretty adventurous person. So what's something that you're excited to experience in the near future?
So at the risk of sounding too kumbaya to you, I could die any second, right? Because of those 3 lesions or tumors that are still sitting on my brain. About 10 months ago, we had a baby girl named Claire, and that was my absolute biggest dream. I never knew if I could have a baby or not. So I am really, really blessed. The biggest thing that I want is to see her step into a path of happiness. So if I can ever have that opportunity, I think that would just be the best thing for me, and that would mean the world to me.
I love that. That's beautiful.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much again for being a part of the show. This has been great. We'd definitely love to have you back on the show for follow-up.
I appreciate it very much. You've been the kindest people I know. So I want to hopefully attempt to return some of it back to you too. So if I can do anything for you at all at any given point, please reach out to me.
For sure. Will do. Awesome.
Have a good day.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.